Welcome to Tech Talk podcast number 7. I think we're on now. Today we are joined by Harry and Adon.
Adon, yeah, it's spelt really weird. Everyone normally calls me Adon. Andon, Adobe is a favourite one.
Adobe?
Typos, spell check.
Right, okay. And they join us from Mimecast, who we've worked with for 8 years now. It's been quite a while, I think. Because they are one of the market leaders in terms of cybersecurity, mainly email protection, but they've also got some other product out there that we'll also go into a bit more detail shortly. Aiden's on the sofa to start with. I don't know if you want to just kick off with a bit about yourself and a bit about Mimecast.
Yeah, taking one for the team and going first. So name's Adon Blackwood. So been working with Mimecast about 5 months now. So still really new, but been in the IT space for about 6 years. So before joining Mimecast, I was working for a company called FishMe, now called Cofence, focused on the human element of cybersecurity, so around awareness training. Cool. Spent a lot of my time sending phishing simulations. So trying to trick end users, see how they behave, their general awareness when it comes to phishing attacks. So that taught me quite a lot, trying to trick people. Moved over to Mimecast and now focusing more on security as a whole. So really around the gateway products, web attacks, and still elements of training around awareness, so the human piece. So it's going well, it's good, it's interesting. Being in the first 2-3 months, I spent a lot of time trying to unravel email and finally understanding how complicated it is. At first, everyone kind of just thinks you put in an email address, you send it off, and you're good to go. But there's so many things happening before an email gets to its destination, which we'll talk about in much more detail. Yeah.
Interesting. So on the fish testing side of things, because that's something we've started doing with some of our customers as well. Yeah. Do you have much of, well, I guess you do have a lot more experience with it in terms of what you've seen out there. Any ideas in terms of any interesting stories you found of people running fish testing and have suddenly had a realization that there is a problem they need to deal with?
So I've had the biggest horror story that I've seen in the past was a phishing attack that was sent out to a CEO of a bank. I'm not going to say which one. And it was essentially saying, your kids had an accident, click here to see the details. We can't disclose via email. Come in, have a chat. And it was basically just ransomware. But the wording in the email itself was quite intentional. It seemed quite informal. So referred to the gentleman as his nickname, which you'd only generally see on social media. So the wider picture is that this attacker went away, did some digging, scoped around on LinkedIn or Facebook, figured out enough to write an email that would get him hooked, and obviously exploiting him in quite a nasty way.
So that's real targeted.
Yeah, really targeted stuff. But if you look close enough, you would have realized that the email address wasn't legitimate. There's subtle details that you can look out for. It's just the premise that attackers don't care and they will go away and do their digging and research and they will try and exploit you, even if it's regarding your children's safety.
Yeah.
So this is like some of the stuff that people need to bear in mind. A lot of people think that there's like script kiddies sitting in their bedroom and they're sending out rubbish phishing emails that have typos and grammar issues, etc., and they're not doing the work. But I think general people like the public and some clients that I've seen don't understand how sophisticated some of the phishing emails are now. And that's just phishing alone. There's the ransomware and the malware and stuff to consider as well. So yeah,
I'm literally just trying to find. We had a bit of a chuckle in the office yesterday because I've found it now. I managed to get suckered by a phishing email.
Oh no!
So not just a phishing email. This is a phishing email that came from the software we're using to test ourselves.
Oh no!
Which is quite embarrassing to admit, I guess. So I got suckered by it as this one, which is really quite obvious when you look at it. But so we'd been doing a bit of work with Microsoft Flow recently, and literally that day I was doing quite a bit of work with Microsoft Flow. So,
I love the email address is
very aware.
microsfot.com.
Very aware of that, thank you. And because it came up, I think the thing I focused on, it said there's been an error with, save my email attachments to OneDrive for business. Ooh. And I was thinking, maybe one of the guys have set something up to do something funky with their emails. And I'm going to check my flow and have a look at it. And then I got the massive, you've clicked on a phishing test warning. So everyone can fall to it. Even
I think
us techies.
Some of the easiest ones that people have fallen for is like free coffee. Just like click here to get your free coffee voucher, and everyone clicks on that. Or you're tactical and you send a simulation around Christmas, and it's like an e-card of some sort or a free voucher for Amazon.
It's like Nodding Elf video, those things.
The problem with it now is that spending time like sending phishing emails and in like cyber has made me so paranoid about everything. Like I can't receive an unsolicited email without thinking twice about it, which I guess is a good thing.
Yeah.
But as a result of that, I've ended up putting like MFA on every account that I've got. So on Amazon, PayPal, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, all of that stuff. And now and again, I get an email that says someone's tried to access your account.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nice try. Nice try.
Yeah. Cool. So being relatively new to Mimecast, Mimecast seems to be a good 70, I think it was 80% of the market seems to use Mimecast, or certainly the legal market by the sounds of things. Any insights into why do you think that is?
From some of like the upskilling that I was doing when I first joined, I think the thing that stands out the most is the admin experience and also the end user experience for the tools that we have. So from an admin perspective, everything's easy to administer. You can log into one place. You've got one dashboard for all of your products and services. So regardless of whether that's email or continuity service, archiving, web security, all of that's in one place. Yeah. That just makes it easier. In terms of navigation and dashboards and accessing data that you need, super easy. So really just jumping around the product and rolling out policies, making changes, really straightforward. And for anyone that's spending time managing those types of solutions, gateway solutions, it can be really difficult having multiple places to get stuff done. So nice and streamlined is the first thing that stood out. And then second one, the end user experience. So a lot of the tools and products that we have, namely email security, is fed directly into an end user experience within Outlook. So you've got a simple MSI file plugin that sits within Outlook, and end users can go ahead, manage their own email queues, anything that's been put on hold, activate our continuity service directly in that. So I think it's consistent. I wouldn't say there's any bottlenecks for end users, like regardless of whether you're in Outlook on a mobile device or just using like a web application. So you're logging into your own portal in like Firefox or something. It's pretty straightforward. And
Macs as well was one thing that sold it for me, because not many people have Mac support. I guess a lot more people nowadays do have Mac support.
Yeah. But
when we were looking at Mimecast before, you've got an actual separate Mac client that you run for getting access to like Mimecast archive. And
this is the thing I've seen in the past in a couple of other companies that Mac users are often forgotten. But a lot of techies love to use Macs. I like to use Macs myself. I've got a personal and work one. So it keeps things streamlined. And I think Mimecast has been intentional to try and cover as much ground as possible. Yeah. All platforms, all browsers, and Outlook itself. So
it's weird and surprising because we still get approached by people that ask the question of, do you guys support Macs? Like, does not everyone support Macs nowadays, surely? But apparently it's still quite commonplace that IT companies don't support Macs, which is, I just found very, very bizarre. So I guess just drilling down into the product itself a bit more in terms of kind of technical functions and how it works, just perhaps people that aren't aware, maybe if you can run through. So when I send an email and it passes through the Mimecast system and kind of ends up in that person's mailbox, do you maybe run through that process?
Yeah, of course. So I'll take a step back and talk about kind of where Mimecast sits. So it's 100% cloud, and it's really designed to complement your Exchange service, your email provider. So whether that's G Suite, Office 365, Exchange Online, Exchange On-Premise, and it acts as your first point of entry, last point of exit for all your emails, which allows us to do some clever stuff in the middle of that. So first one is kind of around primary checks, so your spam checks, domain reputation scores, DNS authentication. So you're looking at SPF records to see if someone's trying to spoof your domain, your DKIM checks, so making sure that the integrity of the email itself hasn't been changed in transit, so no one's intercepted that email. And then you've got some advanced stuff in the middle, which we call target threat protection. And that's designed to look at some of the sophisticated email-based attacks that we're seeing now. We break that down into like 3 areas. So the first one is URL protect, and that's designed to scan and rewrite any URLs that come in inbound emails. Then you've got Attachment Protect, which is designed to sanitize any documents or attachments via email. And then you've got a really nice piece, which is Impersonation Protect, and that's targeted at your phishing attacks, your whaling attacks, business email compromise. So there's lots of clever things happening in the middle before an email gets to the recipient.
Yeah.
But the same kind of checks apply on outbound messages as well. So Mimecast has the ability to automate signatures for you. So we've got a direct sync to Active Directory or Azure, and based on that, we can pull out useful information such as attributes like job titles, telephone numbers, office locations, and it allows admins to go away and automate the producing of signatures for any outbound emails. So there's a lot of moving parts. I think for a lot of organizations that are used to just like typical gateway solutions, so that's stopping spam, scanning for malware, that's really good. But I feel like attacks have moved on a lot since then. And just my time spent sending phishing simulations and some of the attacks I've seen in the past, like prime example is a URL that is clean on inbound.
Yeah.
Most gateway solutions will scan that at the start and then allow it through if it's clean. But that doesn't look out for latency-based attacks. So an attacker going away and then 24 hours later manipulating the site, changing the code, and then that end user clicks on the link and now they're at risk. So Mimecast has worked to create solutions for that. So the URL Protect suite, as an example, will scan all URLs as soon as they hit the gateway. If they're clean, we let them through. But we rewrite the URL and tag it. So if you decide to click on that link 2 days from now, you're pointing back to Mimecast first. Mimecast is going to do all those scans again and then decide whether we want to give you access or not. So there's a combination of different technologies that we put into that. We've worked very, very hard into streamlining that so it's effortless for admins and the end user as well. And the results speak for themselves. So a lot of the calls that I have with clients are talking about impersonation attacks where someone has gone away, created a Gmail account with the same first name and last name of an MD.
Big business at the moment, yeah.
And ask them to send a wire transfer because they're on the road and it's important. And that's exactly the type of stuff that we can stop and look out for. So we have a couple of indicators that we look out for. First name and last names that match Active Directory. If that's come from a Gmail account, we can spot that because it looks suspicious. So lots of moving parts.
How does that handle, technical question, how does that handle genuine people, the MD's email from his own personal email account into the company?
So the platform was designed to look out for that. So you would consider that a false positive. If you
do you whitelist them?
You can whitelist them. You can add bypasses for a lot of the policies that we have. There are nuances and considerations to be made. So prime example would be an anti-spoofing policy. Basically stopping anyone pretending to be you and sending emails on your behalf. But there may be a case where you have a CRM such as Salesforce that is legitimate and does need to send emails on your behalf. There's bypasses for that. So I would say there's no stone left unturned. Everything's kind of been considered. And there's multiple ways to achieve what you need. So top level, a lot of the conversations I have with clients is baseline policies, best practice. How do you turn on Mimecast features so you're protected without going into too much detail? And we've got documentation on that, and we can definitely advise on that. But I always recommend that you consider your industry that you're in, some of the attacks that you've seen in the past, and you use that to manipulate and really amend those policies to make them as accurate as possible. Because an attack that someone would see in an accounting industry wouldn't be the same that someone in an architecture firm would see. So there's a couple of things you do need to bear in mind, but Mimecast will cover all of them.
And so the process where it's going from, so someone sends an email, goes into the Mimecast platform, goes through all of those checks, and eventually down to the end user's mailbox.
Yeah.
Is it eventually? Is it how does it cause any of a delay going through that process?
No, so there's no delay. The only delay you'd probably see is an email being held up in a queue because a policy's been triggered and Mimecast deems it as suspicious, which will be intentional. Number one case would be spam as a prime example. But in terms of latency, there isn't any that would be detrimental to an end user. The only latency you need to bear in mind is sandboxing. for attachments. Most people that work with sandboxes will understand that they're designed to look out for 0-day based attacks. So attacks that don't have signatures that no one has seen before. And it really goes back to that question of how do you stop something that you don't know exists?
Yeah.
So the sandboxes are there, but we've got a couple of ways that streamline that latency for the end user. First one is the sanitizing of attachments that I mentioned earlier. So you could choose to configure Mimecast to convert every attachment that comes into the network as a PDF, and that eradicates any script or code or potential macros that could be dangerous. And because that's an instant conversion, there's no latency, there's no delay, but there is the option for the end user to request the original file if they need it. So going back to architecture firms, some of them have very complicated schematics. Sometimes a PDF conversion isn't what they need.
Yeah.
So in that case, they can go ahead, request the original file, and then Mimecast will put that into a sandbox on demand. Obviously, if it's clean, they'll release it, and you're probably looking at no later than 20 seconds to 40 seconds in latency. And I think for end users, that's nothing in a grand scheme.
Yeah, I think so. To get that extra level of security, and we use it all the time, and lots of our customers use it. So you receive an attachment, it will then effectively, so you're opening it up on your platform, converting it into a safe format, into a PDF file. You can then review it, check that you're happy that it's a legitimate file and is what you're expecting, and then you can then request it's then re-delivered back to your inbox with the original file, with the original content, and maybe the formatting's slightly off with some of the sandboxed files.
Yeah, well, I think the key thing is automation. So any admin that's going to go away and turn on this policy is mindful that any policy they create is going to make more work for them, because they're having end users request stuff. They need to raise tickets, they get emails released. So the sanitizing feature is designed to streamline that. There's no need to engage with an admin unless you really need something.
Yeah.
But if you convert that policy to allow end users to request that file themselves, the admin doesn't need to be involved. Unless that sandbox picks up a 0-day attack, spots something unusual, then that email is going to be placed on hold, and then an admin has to do more digging. So the likelihood of that happening is very low. I think generally a lot of the policies are created are there for automation. So you want to give end users enough tools and power to do their job without engaging with tech support teams and IT help desks. But if something does go wrong, you do need an admin to be notified and jump on that quickly enough. So that's how the platform's been designed. It's give your end users access and as much power as possible, but still keeping them safe and not giving them full control for a disaster to happen.
Cool. So most of the world generally runs on, two platforms, I guess, is Gmail and Office 365.
Yeah.
Those both have security built into them already. What are your thoughts around how good is that security?
It's not so much how good is the security. My stance on security in general is that the more layers you have, the better. So it's really going back to that avoiding single point of failure approach and having defense in depth. So like going back to like my own personal use case, when it comes to security, all of my internet accounts, so Amazon, PayPal, Gmail, all have 2FA on. And that's designed to stop an attack if the first method fails, i.e. your password is leaked. So the same philosophy applies when it comes to Office 365 and G Suite. It's just add as many layers as you can because the likelihood of something getting into your network and being dangerous is quite low. So Mimecast is designed to complement your email provider. It's not there as a replacement, but it's really thinking, if one layer of security fails and something does get past that, do you have other layers that can stop that before it's dangerous and nasty?
And I guess you'd agree with that that's both Office 365 and Gmail.
Absolutely.
I think Gmail's built-in protection is probably a bit better than Office 365 built-in. We obviously many years back when we started selling Office 365 and it was very new to the market, generally the idea was you stick with 365 protection because it had protection. But any new customer we've dealt with in the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's always been, if you're going 365, then you need to have Mimecast sat in front of it, really, because it just adds that extra level of protection. Things were still coming through the Office 365 default policies, and you can sit there and configure lots of the policies, but once you've gone through the process with Mimecast, it seemed to, I think we'll get on some SLAs in a little bit as well, but seemed to block out an awful lot that the natively they weren't blocking.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting point because I think it's going down to the definition of spam. So for people, spam means different things. So I could receive an email on something that's cybersecurity related and it's unsolicited, but still relevant, and I may be interested in that. Or I could get something that's a free coupon for pizza, and I'd want to block that straight away. So ultimately, your engines that you're using to do these scans are only as good as the data feeds that they have. I would assume that Google has quite a big reach when it comes to spam, given their internet presence. And also, like, when it comes down to Mimecast, we use a number of different engines. So we've got a couple that are built in-house that are proprietary, and then we've got a couple of commercial ones. And the design of that is having, again, more layers, so less likelihood of something getting in that you don't want to see.
We still get the odd like new customer we talk to, which I've got antivirus. What else do I need?
Yeah.
Like, you need more than just antivirus.
Yeah. The thing that scares me the most is how sophisticated internet-based attacks are getting now, and end users just aren't aware. So an example of this would be redirect attacks on URLs. So an attacker giving you 10 redirects, hoping that your gateway solution doesn't follow the redirections. You get to the destination site, and that's where the payload is. And most end users don't know that type of attack exists. And unless you're coy and quite savvy, you won't spot your browser jumping between pages before you get to where you need to. So there's all of these subtle things that I've become aware of that make me very paranoid to use the internet. But also make sure that I've got the right footprint and I'm aware of what's going on. So I need to stay up to date. And that's what Mimecast are doing. So we're looking out for some of the sophisticated things that aren't just an attachment that's got malware on it that they're sending to 200 users. It's now an impersonation attack where there's no payload in the email, but they socially engineered the email itself and have used writing that will exploit a user. And again, it's really about awareness, and that goes back to the human piece, the human element. We're talking a lot about technical controls, but ultimately people are the ones using email. So how do you educate your end users and kind of explain best ways to use it safely?
And so awareness training, I don't know if that's one for Harry or if for yourself, the awareness training is one of the recent products that Mimecast have brought on board.
I will let Harry cover it off, but it is one of our newest products, and it's designed to be very quirky and engaging. So we kind of took a step back from the technical piece and really focused on delivering awareness, but in the form of entertainment. So Harry will cover that off, but we actually use the awareness training platform in-house for our own Mimecast employees. And the general consensus is that people are looking out for those new videos because they're just hilarious. And at the end of it, you then kind of remind yourself, and then you realize that it's a training piece. And it's really focused around cybersecurity. So, I'll leave it there. No spoilers. I'll let Harry cover that off.
If that's okay, I'll probably chat to Harry about some SLAs because there's some interesting stats around the SLAs you've got. So I don't know if you want to...
Great stuff. Yeah, we'll sort around.
Because Mimecast has... There's a raft of SLAs that I normally just look up online when I look around things. But I know you've got some around uptime and spam protection and antivirus. I don't know if you just want to run through the SLAs, if you can remember them all off the top of your head.
Yeah, no problem. So we've got various service SLAs that we offer at Mimecast. So the first of which is 100% uptime, which we think is one of the really nice ones that's on the market at the minute. Basically meaning that, what Adon was talking about, single points of failure. If you do have Mimecast in place, covering your Office 365, Exchange, Google environments, whatever you've got, the 100% uptime SLA is designed to always be in place. So basically, because we're your first point of entry, last point of exit, we guarantee we're always going to be up, online, 100% SLA. So all your security policies are in place, all your stationery is in place. So the outside world has no idea that you're having any downtime or anything like that. And
that's something we haven't actually touched on yet, is that the Mimecast service, in terms of uptime, can keep your Office 365 or Gmail system up because it's actually like a failover system, and you can use that as your email system in the event that Office 365 or Microsoft have any issues or outages or anything along those lines, which does happen from time to time. So Mimecast has got that 100% uptime underlines that service as well, that you can always get access to your data, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's making sure that data is always available. Customers are getting the best experience they can. Microsoft will say they don't go down, but if you just look at, the things that are out there, like Down Detector, various different things like that, you'll actually see how long these outages last. And, some are up to 8 hours at a time, some are a couple of days, depending on where you're geographically located. So
yeah, I think thankfully we've not had any major outages. It's normally we get things like the admin console you can't get into and those kind of things. I think we get the odd hiccup where customers can't get into their inboxes. I don't think we've had anything longer than a day, thankfully. I wouldn't try to think what would be like a day. So what time's one of the SLAs? Then you've got some cool stuff around the actual spam protection itself and the actual security stuff.
Yeah, so around the spam, so the spam protection SLA is around false positives and false negatives. That's how we detect or will calculate how you will the SLA will work. So basically, if we see a dropout in service on the spam side of things, so if you drop below 99% false positive, false negatives, I think it's around 250 emails, searches, or whatever you're doing. So that's sort of how that works. But basically, there's a financial rebate and compensation should you experience any sort of spam outbreaks or anything like that.
Legitimate stuff is getting blocked by mistake, and then become brilliant.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if we're blocking the wrong things, or some policies are in the wrong place, obviously it takes some identification, and we'll have a look through it. But absolutely, if Mimecast is the problem, then we will obviously pay back a financial rebate.
We very rarely get anything legitimate that's blocked, I think, because one of the nice things about the Mimecast platform is it goes through that learning phase when you first put it in.
Yeah.
The first few weeks of the month or so, it's learning the emails you're sending to, the language you're using, all of that kind of stuff. And it's very, very rare. I don't recall seeing anybody that's had anything blocked that shouldn't have been blocked legitimately.
It's normally a new service that they've implemented that's set on their behalf or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, so be like a new email service they brought up, or a new domain they brought online, and something else that's kind of added into the account that has caused problems, but that's because it's brand new and hasn't been seen by anybody yet.
Exactly. And so, like you said, you mentioned there, the learning curve at the beginning is just making sure that
start learning again.
We start familiarising ourselves with the organisation's traffic and what they're using it for, and then obviously Mimecast kicks in, and we learn that fairly quickly. So,
and is there something around the actual virus protection as well? Was there an SLA around that?
So there's 100% virus protection SLA as well. So basically, if we have to again identify that Mimecast has been the source of an antivirus outbreak in your,
is that something's been allowed through? Then
something's been allowed through, or you can obviously show that Mimecast has been directly responsible for a virus getting onto your network, onto your computers, however it's got in, then again, there's a financial rebate and service on that. So that's any virus that comes in.
How does that protect against because you've got the known viruses? How about the unknown stuff that's coming through? There might be one for you, Adon, possibly about the unknown viruses or things that are so new that are just kind of cutting edge and they've just started happening. Is there something that goes on in the background? So you might have come across the microphone possibly.
There's a couple of ways to kind of consider it. So it's really down to your policies, and I think it's always good to create email policies that are designed in a way to look out for those things. So an attachment, as an example, the safest thing to do would be to sanitize that and convert that, and then have everything go into a sandbox so you can capture those 0 days.
Right, okay.
Outside of the stuff that you don't see on the platform as an admin, we do have our own SOC team, which we call MSOC conveniently. So they're on top of a lot of the sophisticated attacks. We've got a threat intel team that are going away, and they're in the deepest parts of the internet to look out for some of these campaigns that are in process that haven't popped up yet. So we're ahead of the time. And from that, we can generate our own signatures. It's really using a combination, as I mentioned earlier, 2 commercial engines and then 2 built in-house. So through those 4 feeds, we're covering quite a lot of ground. And that's really for those 0-day attacks. I think when it comes to cybersecurity in the industry, that's the term that everyone's a bit afraid of, because you're like, okay, we're not protected against this 0-day attack because we don't have a signature. So how do we have as many layers as possible that can spot something happening before it gets into the network and does damage? So that kind of like tails off into the other part, which is how do you make sure that your sensitive data is protected and encrypted should there be a ransomware outbreak? And our archiving platform is designed to look out for that. So should there be some kind of data hostage situation, do you have your data in a form that attackers can't do anything with? So at rest, all of your emails and all of the attachments that are sent in emails are encrypted with AES 256. Sitting on our data centers, we've got it stored in triplicate across 2 different locations. If we're considering GDPR, both of those locations will be in the UK. So there's a lot covered. We've considered encryption and also redundancy when it comes down to that. But the sandbox itself is pretty nifty. I like to call it a time-traveling sandbox because it can fast forward in time to see if there's any latency-based attack. So we can put a file in the lab, speed up by a couple of weeks or a month, mimic cursor movements to make it look like it's a real user's machine. So there's a lot covered in that. So touch wood, should there be a 0-day attack, we should spot it before it does anything nasty.
Nice. Cool.
Over
Thank
to
you.
Gary.
And I guess just where we've started touching on things like the archiving, the fish testing, there are certain bundles that Mimecast has, and we obviously go in, and lots of our customers use, I think it's the S1 kind of bundle or plan or package or whatever we're going to call it. There's so much more to it. So maybe if you could just give a rundown of I guess, the product breakdown, because there is the email protection, but there's also some email security and file sending, and over to you.
Yeah, so we've got a number of different sort of product suites and packages, but we like to package things up based on we have sort of 3 core pillars at Mimecast, which is your security, your continuity, and your archiving. And we look to cover those off in various different service selections. So we have S1, for example, which you've mentioned, and that includes everything around, the advanced threats and security that we're seeing today. So your basic antivirus, anti-spam, but obviously all the TTP stuff that Adon touched on as well. Included in that is also things around stationery, so you can obviously build HTML-based stationery within Mimecast as well, which is a nice to have, nice additional feature if you don't want to sort of be using exclaimers and other things that sort of bulk out the cost of your email infrastructure and things like that. And what I touched on with the continuity SLA is, moving into the next package, but all those security policies, all that stationery is in place should you have any sort of outages or any downtime within those packages. So the next one would be continuity. So that is C1. Very rarely sold as a standalone product, to be quite honest, because it's very
on top
it really nicely ties into the security piece. So I'll touch on how that fits together in a sec. But the third one would be A1. So you can see we're following a package here of security, continuity, and archiving.
Yeah.
So S1, C1, A1. A1 is obviously the archiving platform. And I didn't touch on the SLA around archiving, but we have a 7-second search SLA as well. So it doesn't matter how much data you populate Mimecast with, how long you've been a Mimecast customer, we're archiving mail as it comes in and mail as it goes out. So we're building your archive over the years you continue to use us. And it doesn't matter how long you've been using us for, that 7-second search SLA is maintained. And this is why we're very strong in legal sectors and things like that, where people need to find information and email data quickly, especially with GDPR now and the right to be forgotten. If you need to purge some data very fast, hey, we can find it within 7 seconds. That's a very powerful message, as opposed to your admins trawling around for days, weeks, months to find all the data and purge it from the archive.
And just touching on that, because you mentioned GDPR, obviously it's a big thing nowadays. Mimecast platform is GDPR is compliant in terms of, from a customer's perspective, being able to go in and find those emails from the right people and removing them from the system? Yeah,
absolutely. So we're fully compliant around, we have ISO 27001 certifications and all the other certifications that come with GDPR. We've got to take away from the messaging that Mimecast will make you GDPR compliant, because we don't. We make you GDPR compliant from an email perspective, but people suddenly hear GDPR compliant and they're like, fantastic, I can cover all my bases with Mimecast. It's not the case.
In terms of, I guess, so when people have like subjects, data requests and rights for removal, those kind of things, can you go through the Mimecast platform and erase any form of information about that particular user?
Yes, absolutely. So that will be done in the administration console.
Yeah.
So you can actually have administrator rights and people who manage your account. In your case, you manage a lot of this for your customers.
Yeah.
But obviously, these rights can be pushed down to the end users as well. So depending on what they want to do. But you can find that information. The same 7-second search SLA powers the administration console as well. So it doesn't matter whether you're using the end user experience, which is our MFO or Mimecast for Outlook plugin, or you're in the administration console. You can still find all of that information within 7 seconds and get it out of your environment.
And so you mentioned there's some other things we touched on as well. Secure messaging and large file send. Do you want to just cover those? What those are exactly?
Yeah. So I'll dial it back quickly just to sec, just to talk about the product suites as well.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry.
So and then I'll touch on the extras. But we obviously look to bundle products together. So we've already touched on how security and continuity work together. So we have a package for that, which is called M2. And then additional functionality around that, like M2R, which is adding things like sync and recover into that, which I'll touch on in a sec. And the third one would be M2A. So that's, again, covering all the bases. So that's your security, your continuity, and your archiving all under one hat. So M2 and M2A are the sort of...
So you get, I think it's 30 days retention on the S1.
Yep.
58 days retention on the M2.
M2, yeah.
And then M2A is just indefinite at that
M2
point.
is perpetual retention, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I'm assuming you can still set policies on that for companies that just determine they want to only hold on to data for a year or 2 years.
Absolutely. It's completely customizable. So you can have, it's out of the box, comes as 99 years.
Yeah.
And obviously you can then configure that based on, how long you want to keep data for, whether you have, 10-year rules or anything like that. What it allows you to do is run a really lean email environment as well. Even with S1, for example, you can kick all the emails out. If you only need to keep data for 30 days, Mimecast is storing that data for 30 days as well.
Yeah.
So you can use the platform to find email. And you can run a real lean infrastructure that way and obviously take the burden off servers and other services as well.
Cool. Okay. And the other bits and bobs?
Yeah, the other bits and
Add-ons?
bobs. So we have additional services and features available. So things like secure messaging, which is around adding an extra layer of encryption to email, which is a sort of a captive portal where you can log in, make it password protected. You can take away functionality around printing, replying to emails, and obviously put password protection things in place as well.
Yeah.
So adding that extra layer of encryption, because as Adon said, we're encrypting email as it's sent, but all email is sort of done by standard with TLS encryption. And TLS encryption is only great if there's a TLS encryption certificate at point to point.
Yeah.
So not to say anything isn't sending an email to another organization that doesn't have TLS, Mimecast can actually fail over. We'll notice this as the email leaves that your recipient doesn't have TLS, and we can fail over and send that via our secure messaging platform. So again, adding that extra layer of security and encryption to the mail as well.
Cool.
The next one is large file send. As the name suggests, it gives you the ability to send large files.
What's the biggest file you can send with it?
2 gig.
2 gig.
So
Okay,
files
cool.
up to 2 gig in size can be sent via our platform. And again, a really nice experience for this is the customer or another customer doesn't necessarily have to have Mimecast large file send in place. You can actually send a link for them to send you large files back and forth. So really, really powerful tool for architecture firms, building companies, things like that. Anyone who's going to have big plans and blueprints and things that are going to be
2 gig's a very large email attachment.
Yes, it's a very, very large
big.
email attachment. So yeah, again, and then all sorts of security rules in place on that as well. So it's like a secure Dropbox sort of thing.
Yeah.
Making sure we've got you covered. So again, password protected, take away functionality and forwarding rights and various different things as well. So really, really clever, intuitive platform. The next one is internal email protect. Sort of does a lot around applying all the sort of TTP policies and functionality that we're doing to internal traffic. So we're actually seeing that sort of 80% of all emails sent is actually sent internally within organizations.
Yeah.
So actually making sure that we're securing you from an internal perspective as well. That's not to say that, you've got all these other layers and there may be a gap in one of these layers. Well, at least, we can start to pick up on these and actually secure that traffic internally as well. The next one would be sync and recover. So sync and recover is Mimecast extending our cyber resiliency story. So what we're trying to do here is the first thing it does is really enhances the archiving experience. So we've already touched on the 7-second search SLA, but let's say for example, there's an entire folder within the archive that you could find this information from really quickly that you've just deleted from your normal environment. You can actually pull that information out really quick because your folder structure is replicated within the archive as well.
And that's a big bonus when you're doing using the continuity side of things, because if your Exchange server's offline or your Gmail's offline or Office 365, then what you see in the Mimecast portal is an exact replica of your inbox, including all folders and subfolders, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So if without sync and recover and that element on, you don't see the subfolders.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful
big collection
add-on
of
tool.
emails.
Yeah, exactly.
Big collection of emails.
It's all well and good. If you know where the folders are, it makes that experience a little bit easier, more intuitive. It does a lot more than that as well. It's also actually backing up your environment. So should there be, any breaches, anything like that, you can actually make sure that your environment can come back online. If there's a malicious insider within your organisation, anyone like that leaves your organisation, deletes their entire mailbox after sending themselves XYZ information. It does happen. It shouldn't, but it does. Basically, we're back up and restoring your email environment every 4 hours. That's calendars, tasks, everything, all the mail traffic. So you can actually restore entire mailboxes, entire group mailboxes, as per 4 hours beforehand. So a really, really powerful tool as
And
well.
the retention for that?
So that is as long as the retention
Is on the
is in
account,
place
yes.
for the account.
So
Exactly.
30 days or 58 days or
58
whatever
days.
you wanna
Yeah,
say.
yeah. It's and it's only available with services with continuity and above.
Right,
So
okay, yeah.
M2 and M2A.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Any common types of threats that you see on the platform? I don't know if you might not have stats to hand in terms of the kind of threats you're seeing on a daily basis, stuff that's on the rise,
Yeah.
new things coming out.
I think one of the, Adon touched on it a lot, is we're seeing a lot around social engineering and impersonation attacks. And that's where we see a lot of the big wins and quick wins for us are around security and how we can enhance, the standard security you get with an Office 365 service and Microsoft and Google as well, who are a little bit better. But yeah, we're trying to extend that security story and security play as well. So we try and cover all the areas in terms of that Microsoft don't do, shouldn't do, and probably don't do very well. So we're actually trying to complement those services and solutions. So the big one is really around impersonation attack, and that
We've
leads
seen
into
a lot of that come in recently. There's lots of, and very targeted impersonation attacks as well. There's been lots of lots of targeted and indirect targeting, I guess. There's been quite a few blanket phishing emails will go out. They'll be successful. They'll get the login details for the PA or someone admin assistant or something in a company. Once they're in there, then they can generally see the boss's inbox, because he probably copies in the PA. They can then see all your email signatures, the language you're using, and then they'll then craft an email to then start doing some impersonation attacks on various people around the company, and they'll have their email signature. They know all the natural language he normally uses, and it's a very, very accurate representation of what would be a legitimate email.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons we built the platform was actually we were targeted ourselves in the exact same way. So someone trying to impersonate our CFO, asking to send out a payment for a large sum of money to XYZ organisation, and actually to the naked eye, if you'd picked it up on a mobile phone or anything like that, you only see the name anyway. You don't actually see the domain or anything like that. So this domain was actually Mimecast, M-I-R-N-E. So again, at first glance, it looks like an M. So without actually looking out for these indicators and things, this email came through and the payment nearly went through. He was just too polite. He's not normally that polite, and that's sort of why it was picked up in the end. And they didn't do their research on that little part, and luckily the payments didn't go through. But if they're coming after us, and we play in this big security space, and no one is safe from these sorts of things. You've got to make sure you have all these layers in place and the right solutions and the right people to identify these problems as well, which leads into the awareness training piece. So it's all well and good these emails come through. We can't stop everything. No one can. There is no silver bullet to security, and especially around email. It's 91% of all attacks come through via email. And then obviously around that, probably 95% of them actually have some form of human error in place. And that's why he's the guy you see in all of our awareness training videos. Human error is the devil on your shoulder, because he's the one telling you to click on the malicious links. He's the one telling you, you could have a free boat. There's no such thing as a free boat.
No.
We've all clicked on the link. It doesn't exist.
Definitely. And so the awareness, and that's something we've tried to focus on a lot more recently, is the awareness. Quite a few people, and it's a bit like an insurance policy. You hope to never use it, but you need it when you need it. And you never really realise until something happens to yourself, and your phone gets targeted. We've had quite a few cases where years and years back, people will say, "No, I don't need it. It's never going to happen to me." A month or two later, they have an attack, or they have any email make its way through, exactly like you've had impersonating somebody else. Bank details were changed on an invoice. I think they paid the invoice, and they were, I think it's about 400 grand out of pocket. And all of a sudden, they wanted email protection.
That's
after
it.
that.
But it's always that the compelling event is always going to come at some point. Whether you realise that before or after it happens. Hopefully you realise it before. But these things will happen. It's a matter of when you're going to be attacked and when this could affect your organisation, as opposed to these attacks are going on all the time.
And that's why the staff awareness training is such a big part of it, because, like you said, the staff are really your weakest link. You can have all the protection in place, and yet that staff member can still, something will still make its way through one way or another, whether it's email or through a website or whatever it's going to come in. It's still going to get into your network. And if your staff aren't trained to just be aware of what could be out there, there's one platform we looked at, and was it either a platform or one of our customers might have told us that there's, I think it was a security company were coming in to chat to a prospect about their business, about trying to say how good's your security, and we think you might need to buy our services or what have you. I think came in and sat down and said, how good do you think is your security? I think it's brilliant. We don't really need you guys. Okay, well, over the last couple of weeks we've flown 20 drones or something over your office. It was like a big, like a manufacturing plant or something. We've flown 20 drones over your office and dropped off memory sticks all around your offices, and they'd of those 20, 15 of those have been plugged in by your staff into your machines, and that's just nuts. I mean, I'd love to buy a drone just to be able to do that and just drop memory sticks around.
Well, you've given us some good ideas for our
and
next video content.
Exactly.
So
let's see who
human error flying a drone over the top of someone's organisation. I quite like the idea.
But it's just things like that you need the awareness training of actually do not pick up this random USB stick that's on the floor marked as like company accounts or like salary information, and then plug it into your computer.
It seems like such a simple thing, but these are types of the types of attacks that people do, and it's normally the most simple ones that are the most effective.
Very much so.
We've got all the the high level ones and the high level social engineering stuff, but it is sometimes just as simple as lobbing a memory stick outside someone's office and hoping they'll plug it in, and this does happen.
Does the out of interest, the staff awareness and training platform, does that cover GDPR at all?
It covers elements of it, yes. So we do have some stuff around GDPR best practices and stuff in there, and they're very short. So obviously GDPR is
it's huge,
minefield in itself.
But more so because one of the things when you people join a company, you really have to put GDPR into the onboarding process now to make sure people are aware.
Yes.
And if that can roll into, because it still forms part of your IT security as well, because it's very much about data protection, data security, that it may well fall in line with email protection, looking out for malicious emails and links and dodgy emails, and making sure you're not sending a list of emails and CCing in all your contacts, which happens quite often, more often than you'd be led to believe. But it's just happening constantly, and like I say, the staff training bit is very much more important, and it's been a big focus of ours recently.
Yeah, we try and take a different approach to it. Our approach to it is more around spreading that viral culture that is so apparent at the moment, and getting people talking about the content. And no one wants to talk about a video that they've seen that's an hour long and then followed by an hour long exam. Our content is a couple of minutes, followed by one quick question to show that you were listening and paying attention and took it in. And obviously then you can track yourself internally, the metrics and stuff in there. Is really, really important. Track yourself against other similar organisations who are using our platform as well. So, hey, out of all the legal companies or financial companies, you guys rank very highly in terms of user training. So you can actually start to identify user groups and everything as well based on these results, and who needs the most training and where the sort of gaps in your organisation are. And on top of that, obviously, you have the ability to send out your own fish tests. So there are templates and things that we've built in there and stuff. And a very cool new feature that we're looking to implement in the not-too-distant future. I can't give you an exact roadmap on it at the moment, but it's something we call live fire. So basically, we're using all the emails that we're capturing from an impersonation attacks perspective, and actually we can repurpose those emails and send them out as a live phishing example. So it's actually a live phishing email.
Natural, real, kind of
that we've captured,
one,
stripped out, made clean, and actually we can send it out and we can see who would have been fooled by it. Obviously, we've blocked it. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But we can then send it through safely to make sure that the users are getting the right training, and you can identify, again, it's not a witch hunt, but it is just around
just the awareness and
that's it. Understanding, that these things happen, and you've got to make sure that the staff are trained up on these different elements. Some people might be varying ages in your organisation. Some more people are IT savvy, some aren't. But everyone has their value in an organisation, so you've got to make sure all those different groups are covered. I
think the issue I've had, particularly the one that caught me out, was just I'm busy, and everyone's busy nowadays. So that's the key. Is you're busy, you're on your busy working day, and you just glance at an email and it's just taking that extra fraction of a second or extra 2 seconds just to go, actually the sender's wrong or the content's wrong or something's wrong about it, which
but it
obviously
depends on busy bar. Like you say, if you're on a mobile device out of the office, you'll only see a name.
You don't see half the information.
You don't see all the information. So that's why you need to have the solutions in place that can stop these things from happening, but then also making sure you have the training, should they come through, to make sure you're not clicking on this sort of content.
I think I even got caught out by, was it an Apple ID one? This is years ago. And it looked legitimate, and like you say, on the phone you don't get to see half the information. You click on the link, and they were so clever that they made the link so long and so many subdomains that the actual domain you saw in the address bar at the top, without clicking into it to look at it more, looked genuine. It had the whole proper apple.com whatever it was. And then I think I went through it, filled in my password, and I was like, hang on a minute. I just tapped on the link, and then I started scrolling back through the 50, 60, 100 characters that was on the link, and I was like, oh crap, and I went and reset my password straight away.
Yeah,
I think we were literally sat in IKEA and I had to tell my wife to stop whilst I just sat there and changed my passwords very quickly.
Yeah, you don't
But
want
it's
that in the
just,
minefield of IKEA either. So.
No, definitely not. So it's just it's still kind of, it still happens.
But it's so advanced now. I mean, there's something out there now called Punicode, and it's, you know, you're not even safe by looking at the domains sometimes. You know, let's say you go to a website, apple.com, there's nothing to say that apple.com isn't an A from a different alphabet or a different language.
Oh, yeah, very true.
So they're using very clever things. So actually go, hey, the domain looks legitimate. It's apple.com. I've clicked on this 1,000 times, but actually the A is from the Cherokee alphabet or something like that. And people click on these sorts of things again, and they're just, the attacks are so advanced now. And our platform is built to identify attacks like that as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's very, very advanced, and, you know, we could talk about it for hours, days, weeks, months on sort of the intricate details within the platform. That's how vast our security capabilities are. So,
cool.
Yeah, some really cool stuff going on.
Thank you. Well, I think I've run out of questions. I don't know if anyone else has got any other thoughts or ideas. No thoughts, no ideas. Cool. Well, thanks guys for coming in today. I really appreciate your time.
No, appreciate it.
If you are interested in more information, then of course get in touch. You know who we are. We are watching our live stream and our videos, so just contact us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of the socials. And thanks once again, and look forward to the next one, whenever the next one's going to be. Probably next week. We'll find out. Cheers, guys. See you later. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.